Have you ever stopped to think about how sometimes the biggest historical insights don't come from the grand overviews?
Right. But from the smaller, really personal stories hidden inside.
Exactly. And how that sometimes, yeah, the most powerful connections just pop up unexpectedly.
Well, that's sort of the heart of what we're exploring today, isn't it?
It is. We're doing a deep dive into World War II, but maybe from a different angle than you're used to.
Yeah, not the usual generals and sweeping strategies.
No, we're looking at it through a really specific human lens using this fascinating book called From Boston to Berlin, A Journey Through World War II in Images and Words.
Okay. So what's our source material for this?
Good question. We've got excerpts pulled right from the book, which is great, and also bits from a really insightful 2002 radio interview with the authors.
The authors being Christopher E. Mauriello and Roland J. Regan Jr.
That's them. And our mission really is to unpack how these two guys, their fathers' wartime lives, their shared background.
How it all came together.
Right, how it created this unique, very personal window into, well, arguably the biggest event of the 20th century.
And there's a hint of something quite surprising in there, too, about their fathers.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
An almost unbelievable parallel. These two fathers, they never met.
Really?
Never.
Oh, yeah.
But they ended up incredibly close, both back home in Massachusetts, geographically, and during the war itself. It's quite something.
Wow. That sounds like a story that almost had to be told. How did it even begin? How did the authors connect?
Well, like you said earlier, the best stories often start by accident, right?
Mhm.
So Roland J. Regan Jr., he's an attorney. He was the one who made the first move. He contacted Christopher E. Mauriello, who's a history professor over at Salem State College.
Okay, so Regan reached out to Mauriello. Why?
Regan had been putting together his own father's photo collection from the war, a pretty big collection.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make sure it was preserved, so he thought, okay, I'll make a CD-ROM copy. And he wanted to donate it to the history department at Salem State.
Makes sense. A good home for it.
Exactly. So he leaves a message for Mauriello. But here's the kicker. Mauriello, completely independently, had been doing something really similar.
No way. What was he working on?
He was deep into his own father's wartime artifacts, but not photos. Letters.
Letters?
Yeah, over 300 letters his dad had written back home during the war to his sisters in Revere, Massachusetts.
Wow, 300. That's a treasure trove.
Isn't it? So Reagan calls about the photos. Mauriello has these letters. They finally meet up for coffee.
Okay, the coffee meeting. This sounds like the moment.
It absolutely was. They start talking, and bam, they realize what they have. These two separate, incredibly personal collections.
And they saw the potential to combine them.
Instantly. Mauriello said, once they put the letters and the photos side by side, it was like the story just started telling itself. It just clicked.
That's incredible, that synergy between the visual and the written word from two different soldiers.
Yeah, it gives you that depth. And what really emerged was how similar their fathers' lives were, even before the war. Well, both were immigrant sons, first generation, born just a year apart, 1921 and 1922.
Right in the thick of it, growing up during the Depression.
Exactly. Tough times.
Mhm.
And they were local guys. Regan's dad from Lynn, Massachusetts,
Okay.
and Mauriello's dad from Revere, which, if you know the area north of Boston,
They're right next door to each other, practically. Maybe 10 miles apart.
pretty much. So their lives had this really parallel track leading up to the war. Just ordinary guys, as the authors put it, thrust into extraordinary times.
A whole generation's story reflected in these two individuals.
Absolutely. But the really mind-blowing thing, the coincidence that just jumps out.
Oh, one you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Even though they never met,
Yeah.
never knew each other during the fighting on the Western Front,
Mm-hmm.
they were sometimes physically only about 10 miles apart again,
Uh-huh.
out there in the middle of the war.
Get out. 10 miles apart, back home, and then 10 miles apart on the battlefield.
Can you believe it? It just ties that local connection to the vastness of the war in such a personal way.
That's astonishing. And it really underscores why these personal artifacts, the letters and photos, are so crucial.
Definitely. Let's talk about those artifacts a bit more.
Yeah.
Mauriello's father's letters, those 300 letters. What makes them so special?
Well, it's the intimacy, isn't it? You're getting a direct line right into someone's thoughts, their feelings, their heart during this incredibly intense time.
Unfiltered.
Totally. You could maybe compare it to, like, George H.W. Bush's Book of Letters. When you read personal letters from a specific time,
Yeah.
it gives you an insight that, official reports or histories just can't capture. It's the human dimension.
Raw and immediate. Okay, so that's the power of the letters.
Yeah.
What about Reagan's father's photographs? They weren't just typical war photos, you said.
Right. There's a story behind them, too. Some, a small number, were actually developed during the war
Okay.
and sent home. Almost like a primitive text message, a way to say, look, I'm okay, I'm still here.
Ah, I see. Visual proof of life, in a way.
Oh, exactly. But here's the interesting part. Most of the photos, the vast majority, were not developed until much later in the war, or maybe even after.
Why was that?
Army censorship was incredibly strict about images.
Really? What were they worried about?
Well, think about it. They were very sensitive about anything that might show how GIs were really feeling morale,
Ah, okay. Didn't want anything potentially negative getting out.
Precisely. Or photos that could inadvertently reveal specific locations, troop movements, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Especially for guys like Reagan's father, who's a combat engineer.
Right, they'd be closer to the front lines, building bridges, clearing mines.
Exactly. Often right in the thick of it. So letting photos out that showed exactly where they were, or maybe how tired or stressed they looked, was a definite no-no.
So the photos got held back. But what kind of pictures were they when they eventually saw the light of day? You mentioned they weren't all combat.
No, not at all. Many were taken during downtime, off hours.
Yeah.
They show camaraderie, everyday life, trying to find moments of normalcy.
Like what?
Well, the authors specifically mentioned some amusing ones, like pictures of Frederick in top hat.
Frederick in a top hat.
Yeah.
In the middle of a war.
Yeah. It sounds odd, but it tells you something, doesn't it? About finding humor, maintaining spirit, even in the darkest times.
It really does. It makes it human.
That's the word. These images, even though we've seen countless war documentaries and photos over the years, these specific personal ones, they still manage to bring it all to life in a fresh way.
Yeah, a tangible connection. So thinking about the whole project, the book, the combined story, what's the big takeaway? What's the lasting significance for us looking back?
Well, I think a key thing is how it shifts the focus. It's a deliberate move away from, the general's perspective or the top-down view that dominated so many earlier books and movies about the war.
Right. This is ground level.
Exactly. It's a reflection, as the authors put it, in terms of the people actually fought that war, the ordinary soldiers.
And through these two specific soldiers, we get a window into a whole generation, right?
Absolutely. You really get a feel for that period, for the lives of these two guys, first-generation Irish, Italian immigrants. Their personal stories become this microcosm reflecting their time, their place, and how they got caught up in, well, probably the defining event of the 20th century.
And there's a sense of purpose behind the authors doing this too, wasn't there? About remembering.
Oh, definitely. Both Mauriello and Regan felt really strongly about the importance of remembering World War II, of reflecting on what happened.
The whole never forget idea.
Exactly that. Trying to understand it not just as history, but as something with lessons to hopefully prevent repeating the horrors.
And using these personal documents makes that reflection more powerful, doesn't it?
Immensely.
Yeah.
They saw it as a privilege, especially for generations who didn't live through it, to connect with that history in such a direct, personal way.
Yeah.
It fosters a real appreciation, maybe even pride, in what that generation stood for and what they managed to achieve under unbelievable circumstances.
That connection feels important. Did the authors mention what happened to the fathers themselves later on?
They did, briefly, in that 2002 interview. By that point, Roland Reagan's father had passed away.
Okay.
But Christopher Mauriello's father was still alive. He had had a stroke, apparently, but he remembered the war quite well.
Wow. And what did he think of the book, his letters being shared?
He was thrilled with it, really pleased to see their experiences documented like that.
That's wonderful to hear. A validation, I suppose.
I think so. So, as we wrap up thinking about this, it really makes you consider, doesn't it, how these deeply personal stories, the ones that often don't make it into the main history books,
Yeah.
they're kind of the bedrock, the foundation of it all. And when you piece them together, like Mauriello and Regan did,
You get a much richer picture.
exactly, a more profound understanding maybe than any grand, sweeping overview can give you.
It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What personal stories might be hiding in your own family's past? What insights into bigger events could be tucked away in an old box of letters or photos somewhere?
They might reveal more than you'd ever expect.